Hi everyone! I get to sit down and listen to yet another name which I have not heard before. This is one which has come across the comments on this channel many times. You need to listen to Neil Young. Neil Young is a classic. Neil Young is something you shouldn't miss. Well, tonight I am going to sit down and give Neil Young my full attention. But before I do, let me just remind you that you can always check out my Ko-fi and Patreon pages if you want to support this journey that I'm taking into unfamiliar music for me. And you will find there exclusive access to videos which can never be published here on YouTube due to copyright issues. Things like Jimi Hendrix and the Eagles and the Beatles 150 series and so on, as well as early access to all Virgin Rock videos and a special music theory course for absolute beginners who've not had any music training before. Well, let's see what I have to read about this piece of music and what the song is actually going to be. Neil Percival Young is a Canadian and American singer and songwriter. Canadian and American. After embarking on a music career in Winnipeg in the 1960s, Young moved to Los Angeles, joining the folk rock group Buffalo Springfield. Okay, so originally Canadian and then moving to the US. His guitar work, deeply personal lyrics, and signature high tenor singing voice define his long career. Young also plays piano and harmonica on many albums, which frequently combine folk, rock, country, and other musical genres. Young has received several Grammy and Juno Awards. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducted him twice, in 1995 as a solo artist and in 1997 as a member of Buffalo Springfield. In 2023, Rolling Stone named Neil Young number 30 on their list of 250 greatest artists of all time. Young is also on Rolling Stone's list of the 100 greatest musical artists. According to Acclaimed Music, he is the 7th most celebrated artist in popular history. 21 of his albums and singles have been certified gold and platinum in US by RIAA certification. Young was awarded the Order of Manitoba in 2006 and was made an Officer of the Order of Canada in 2009. Cortez the Killer, okay, that's the song I'm listening to tonight, from 1975, has since been ranked number 39 on Guitar World's 100 Greatest Guitar Solos and greatest guitar solos. Sounds like I have something coming up here. And number 329 on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. The song is inspired by Hernan Cortez, a conquistador who conquered Mexico for Spain in the 16th century. I remember way back in school learning about Cortez and his conquering of Mexico and the way he treated the people there. And I remember being horrified and thinking, wow, why did he have to do that? That was my first impression of him way back then when I first met the name. Cortez the Killer also makes reference to the Aztec ruler Moctezuma II and the Spanish conquest of the New World. Yes, all of that swirled together in that lump of history that I first met back in grade school. This is going to be interesting. Cortez the Killer. I suppose somebody else felt the same way I did when I first learned the story. such a long introduction. It had a sort of a solo feeling to it, but at the same time, it wasn't what I would say would be a virtuosic solo. It's an atmospheric solo. And as I was listening, I was thinking, what picture is this putting in my mind? How is it making me feel? It has this kind of, well, maybe it's because I'm thinking of Cortez and the time period in which he lived. But somehow it feels like, a great wooden Spanish ship floating on the water, sailing closer and closer and closer, and it has this slow build throughout. It starts gently, and it never really changes, but it builds a little bit fuller, a little bit fuller. It's repeating the same harmonic sequence over and over, and each time it repeats, it's just a little bit more, as if the ships are gradually getting closer and closer and closer. I don't know if I would have come up with that image if I didn't know the title of the piece. But thinking of Cortez and his explorations and his ambitions and where he went and how he went. I once had the chance to step onto a reproduction, an attempt at creating an authentic replica of the Nina and Pinta. Well, those weren't Cortez's ships, right? But I remember looking at them and stepping on and looking at the size and thinking, I cannot believe, it's so hard to believe that these were the ships that traveled to the New World. They're so small and there's so little space. And when I thought of all that they had to carry on there, and the accommodations were so limited, and it was really an incredible, eye-opening experience to step onto the replica and try to picture what it was like. Well, I don't know, because it's been way too long, and I don't even know if I learned these facts when I studied about Cortez. I don't know what size his ship was. Was it bigger or was it smaller? But anyway, it was still one of those old wooden ships that these days we would think you're a fool to go out on the seas with that. But somehow this introductory solo gives me this semi-romantic image of a great wooden ship with sails full and just moving across the vast ocean. The land isn't in sight yet. That's what I get from this opening. And then when the voice entered, I didn't even realize what happened for a moment, because it snuck in there so smoothly, and this rippling, undulating flow of the intro continued so naturally, and it gives an incredibly, it's this complex set of feelings based on what I know of history, based on how this music feels to me. This feeling of beauty and tragedy at the same time. Anyway, let's keep listening.
Dancing across the water with the scallions and garlic.
And the lyrics also are painting this romanticized image. But I feel the way that it is kind of presenting it in favor of the natives. This feeling, that this picture of everything was a certain way in this world. On the shore lay Montezuma with his coca leaves and pearls. In his halls he often wandered with the secrets of the world, and his subjects gathered round him like the leaves around a tree in their clothes of many colors, for the angry gods to see. And then the women were all beautiful. The men stood straight and strong. It's setting up this. But at the same time, although I'm saying it's a romanticized picture, it's not all happy. It's not all perfect. Neither his portrayal of Cortez nor of Montezuma and the civilization that existed. Because he goes on, they offered life in sacrifice so that others could go on. You feel like there's this reference to some of the sacrifices that they offered. And because we know what those were, it reminds us that this was just another civilization. Highly developed. It had its own king, its own life. But just as any civilization, it had its dark side as well. But then, hate was just a legend, and war was never known. The people worked together and they lifted many stones. Again, it's portraying them as kind of these ancient utopia isn't quite the word, but this beautiful scene and environment. They're strong, they're beautiful, they carried stones, they built things that we can't even do today. That's all true. I'm reading ahead in the lyrics just a little bit because I have to. and the music is just carrying on in this ripple, in this flow, in this progression of, it starts to feel inevitable, inescapable, like time passing, like things changing, although the music isn't really changing, but we feel that something is approaching that cannot be averted. And it's not violent. The music itself is not violent. It's very warm and soothing and comforting. But it's just this interesting mix of ideas and emotions and images and musical picture painting. The music is kind of serving as the background. If I were to try to describe this in terms of visual art, I would say that the music is the background, is the ground on which everything else is being represented. And this guitar solo that just came, is it a guitar solo or a bridge? I don't know, but I think it was a guitar solo. It carried the same melody. And this melody, I'm noticing, dum bum 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 bum, da da dum bum bum bum. It's primarily using just two notes, back and forth, bum 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 bum, da dum bum bum bum, and the guitar used the same melody, just took it a little bit more somewhere towards the end of the solo. But it was, I guess what I have to say is this feels incredibly natural. natural, musically natural, very natural in its transitions. And I am going to say also natural in the sense that it, well, organic would be another word that I could use. Natural in the sense that it portrays nature, the course of nature, both the nature of the New World before it was touched by the Spaniards, and also there's this feeling that it's portraying some bit of human nature as well. This interesting mix. Oh yes, I wanted to say also, towards the end of this solo section, it's interesting to me how the guitar the tone changes and develops a little bit of a different sonic quality. Maybe I want to listen to this solo again. Let me back up here.
And the men stood straight and strong. He offered life and sacrifice so that others could go on.
Too many things coming to mind. As I'm listening to the melody some more and the singer, it reminds me of, what's his name? He did not the boxer,
You mean the Hurricane?
The Hurricane, yes, the Hurricane.
That's Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan, yeah, okay. The Hurricane. This voice is smoother, more melodic, more I could say musical in a sense. But it's the same kind of storytelling quality here that I remember from Bob Dylan's Hurricane, where he sings something out, da da ba bum bum, da 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 dum bum, da 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 da. It's so, I guess I'd have to go back and listen to the Hurricane again to see if I'm remembering accurately. It's been a couple months since I listened to it. But suddenly, just now as I was listening, I realized I've heard this style presented a bit differently. This is, I guess, easier for me to listen to. It is more pleasing to the ear. To my ear, at least. But it's a lot of the same storytelling, I could even say bardic style, where you're playing along and the voice is kind of singing a tune, but it's for the service of it's for the carrying of the lyrics. And so the lyrics get a feeling of special importance, because not so much about a melody rising and falling and traveling and progressing and shaping and coloring. It's more about the lyrics and the message and the story that is being told through the lyrics. And for such a musically comfortable piece, that's an interesting thing to have. Both of those in this setting. Pleasant music, this undulating flow, and at the same time, very subtly, all of this is pointing us towards attention to the lyrics, to the story.
So that others could go.
Singing guitar. inevitability. A little bit higher. And here it changes. And I expected to hear the voice enter here. Then it comes again.
Hate was
Now.
just a legend, and war was never known. People worked together, and they lifted many stones, and they carried them to the flatlands, but they died along the way, and they built up with their bare hands what we still can't do today. And I know she's living there, and she loves me to this day. I still can't remember when or how I lost my way.
It's a beautiful guitar, I have to admit.
We keep dancing across the water, Cortez, Cortez, what a killer.
I wanted to stop and then I stopped myself from stopping. Let's go back just a little bit. When he said, Cortez, he came dancing across the water. See what happens
We
here.
keep dancing across the water.
He came dancing across the water, and suddenly the music gets low and ominous for a moment, as if it's reminding us that this was the beginning of the end for this entire civilization.
We keep dancing across the water, Cortez, Cortez, what a killer.
And then the guitar picks up to finish. I feel like this piece of music is deceptively simple. I mean, deceptive. We feel, when I look at the score, when I think of the chord progressions, when I listen to the repetition of the melody and just how it flows along, and it's quite a bit of just repetition with a bit of weaving and variety and coloration along the way, kind of in an improvisatory style. But there's something special about how this music impacts the story being told, and how the two together, if one isn't paying attention, if I were just, let's say I were in a restaurant and heard this in the background. I don't know if I would ever hear this in a restaurant, but suppose I did. And I weren't paying attention, I wouldn't think of it as something really profound or grand. But when I sit down and pay attention, the artistry and the skill with which these ideas are being presented, it really becomes all about the lyrics, and yet far more than just the lyrics on their own. And it's done in such a subtle, unassuming, gentle manner. It doesn't have the fire and the brassiness and the hard edge that Bob Dylan's Hurricane has. It doesn't have the profound, heart-wrenching, frightening bitterness that Pink Floyd gives us in The Wall. It doesn't have that, but at the same time, there's something very, very polished and very sophisticated in the way the two are brought together and presented to us. Now, there's something towards the end that caught me by surprise, when suddenly it stops with this story. They died along the way, they build up with their bare hands what we still can't do today, and then suddenly, and I know she's living there and she loves me to this day. I still can't remember when or how I lost my way. Where did that come from? It feels like it was dropped in out of nowhere from some other song, some other story. Where does that come from? And, well, I'm not exactly sure what I want to make of it yet. But it's intriguing to me. And as I'm sitting here just thinking about it right now, I tend to think that it's referring to the civilization that existed. That it's still there. We find remnants of it there. She's still living there. The spirit of that place is still alive. And she loves me to this day. I still can't remember when or how I lost my way. Somehow, it's about us, the conquerors. How did we lose our way? How did we destroy? How did we completely miss all of this beauty that was there? This life that was there. And then it cuts back to, he came dancing across the water. Cortez, Cortez, what a killer. And that's it. That's where it leaves us. I'm going to have to think about that last bit. It might take me a while to really come to a conclusion that makes really natural sense to me. But I'm interested to see what you have to say about it. Maybe there's a backstory that I don't know. Maybe there's some history that I'm forgetting. Maybe, I don't know. But it's an interesting way to kind of just pull us out of the reverie, out of the reflection on the history past, and suddenly bring us to the present, and makes us sit up in our seats. Makes me go, wait, what? Where did that come from? What is that? And, well, that is the goal of every artist. I don't know, I shouldn't say every artist, but very often the goal of an artist is to get you to pay attention, to get you interested and to engage and to really stop you in your tracks. This did that to me. Now, about the music, well, as I said, it's just less than a handful of chords repeated. I didn't do a full chordal analysis, but from what I could tell, it was just the same sequence repeated over and over and over. And of course that makes sense with how it's serving the lyrics. But the instruments, the players, I don't know all the names. There's Neil Young and who else? There's bass, there's drums, and I have to say that the balance and the ensemble is one of the things that makes it feel so comfortable, so natural. It's as if they just live together. There's a gentleness and yet a clarity to the way they work and the way they weave through the subtle variations. A couple extra strikes on the drum here. The guitar moves a bit there. The bass gives this nice, full, rich, warm depth to it, which I enjoyed a lot. And all of that together is, as I said, it's done in a very improvisatory manner where it just flows out of them so naturally. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the skill and the singer, of course, Neil Young himself. I enjoyed his vocal tone quality and the way he sang. There's a cleanness, a straightness to the way they do it, and at the same time a softness, a little bit of blues softness to the edges. And if I were to sum it all up, I would say balance. Balance in rhythm, balance in sharing the load, balance in the lyrics and the music. And it comes across so nicely because of all of that. Well, this has been, as you can tell, a very enjoyable, nice listening experience for me. And I'm curious to see what else Neil Young created. And so I'm sure I will return to his music in the future. And we'll see what goes on from here. But there we have Cortez the Killer. I'll see you soon.